Anybody that doesn't have a seat, please take your time and find one. We'll get started. Thank you. So any illusions of the seamless technical campaign out the door, so we'll just proceed at pace. That was the campaign song, Good News for Modern America, that helped launch the original Woodard for President campaign in 1996. I'm Stan Woodard, and I've been running for president every 4 years since that time. I'm going to talk about the project since '96 and talk about what's happening now with it and what could possibly happen in the future, what we hope would happen. And maybe I'll just use an A. N. Okay. So in '95, yes. I love him. In 1995, Bill Clinton was president, and he was in a pretty good position. You know, he was being investigated for a number of kind of whitewashing issues, including Whitewater that his wife was involved in. The Monica Lewinsky affair was still a couple years off. But in '95, the spring of '95, you know, when you go to the history of the Lewinsky affair, spring of '95 is when that actually started. So here he is in 1995 and thinking about his run for the second term, and he was in a pretty good position for that, and the country was doing pretty well, except for some issues, a lot of social strife. In April of that year, the Murrah Federal Building was bombed by Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols in an act of, you know, what you'd have to call domestic terrorism. In '96, two similar acts were perpetrated in Atlanta and Raleigh, North Carolina, doesn't matter. But these were definitely acts of domestic terrorism that often were just kind of discussed as if they were issues of the lone, disgruntled, mad bomber. But it really was a little bit more insidious than that. But along the way, as we thought about what would happen, Clinton's would-be challengers all lined up on the Republican side. Some of you recognize, some of you don't. And here's a guy, I don't even know who it is. There's a picture of him, the best picture they had of him, you know, it was like from 1946 or something like that. But these, you know, they're arguing about tax cuts and immigration and health care, just like they are now. And just like now, they were all telling us why they are the best and why someone else, particularly the incumbent president, was the worst possible choice. It was a pretty negative time in American politics, just as it is now. So one day, with a friend, we were watching the news, and I was just kind of outraged, and I said, you know, why don't I just run for president? These guys can. And she said, well, you should. So I launched my campaign. In Vegas. But as we talked about it, you know, it's like, how can I actually be president? My first issue was that there would be no more talking in the movies. And that kind of set the tone for what my campaign would be. It was more something about me personally than, you know, it was about me being president, because it's very difficult to become president. I'm a natural-born American citizen. At the time, I was there at the age of 35. But it's difficult to go, you know, from here, where any of us are, to become president. But as I talked about it, people were kind of intrigued by the idea and had a lot of questions I really was mind-boggled by, like, are you really running for president? Are you on the ballot in 50 states? These kind of things. So I really didn't quite know how to answer some of that. So I started doing a little research and became a little more knowledgeable about it. But as I went forward, you know, it came time to promote the presidency. And I chose the hippopotamus. Well, I've got an affinity for the hippo. And the hippo has a great place in the imaginations of cultures throughout the millennia and throughout the purpose of their use. So we can see here, this hippopotamus, he's known as Henry. He's held it where is he? He's at the Met, Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. So he dates from Egyptian second dynasty, I believe that is. And then you move it up a little bit to Walt Disney's Fantasia, and his treatment of hippopotamus is this kind of cute thing. But in reality, the hippo is a very important animal. It dominates its ecosystem, which is the Nile River Basin, and just through its everyday activities, it enhances the river for all life there, plant and animal life. The hippo is one of the most vicious animals, but it's also known to be one of the most tender animals when it comes to its young. So it carries on a lot of the what some people would think of, if you want to anthropomorphize them, which isn't necessary, but the territoriality of the hippo, is seen in its bellicose manner, and people have talked to them about being violent and warlike and things like that. But the fact is, once they've established their territory, they really don't go beyond that to try to take over more territory. They're not that selfish and greedy, pretty well contained that way. But the time that they become most dangerous is when they're possibly endangering their young. And that's a quality that a lot of people would like to think is human-like. So, with the hippo as my campaign's male mascot, I set about promoting the campaign and thought that this hippopotamus kind of could represent the foundation upon which our greatest hopes and dreams could flourish. Represented here by our children. Mackenzie is here representing that demographic, and I do thank you for joining us tonight. So, as time went apace, I mentioned the project of David Dean, who's also in attendance, and thank you for coming, David. And, like a lot of people, friends, and others I mentioned it to, he was intrigued by it. And being a visual person, we thought that we needed to really think about the visual aspect of the campaign. And being promotion-minded, probably more at that time than now, he also advised me that we needed a political party to back us up. And since I liked the hippo, I already adopted it as a visual. We turned the hippo into a hip party organization. So now I was running under that banner. And this is the first graphic David did for us, and the first one that really, kind of expressed that. The hippo still is kind of important to me, but as, and I'm getting a little bit ahead, but as time went on, it became less and less used. But here, there's a strong use of the hippo in a banner, and again, this is that artwork from Good News for Modern America's soundtrack, I would call it, or the campaign song. So that came together over the course of a few months with me in my loft torturing my neighbors, I'm sure, and annoying my friends. But eventually it was recorded at Demolition Sound in Decatur, I think, and I want to just acknowledge everybody that helped with that. So that was, David Watkins was the engineer, Stan Taylor produced it, played saxophone, John Pack played guitar, and David played keyboards and was the general instigator of the whole project, so probably the executive producer, those kind of titles of things. We did, I think we put maybe 500 of those together. I don't know if we did that many even. But those got sent out. I handed them out to people, and I sent them out around to friends and colleagues around the country, and even internationally. So that made my campaign an international event. Thank you very much. Yes. So as time went on, we eventually narrowed the three major candidates down. Well, actually, normally we would have two, right? But Ross Perot came along and really shook things up. So we had Bill Clinton. Actually, let's play with this a little bit. So Bill Bill Clinton, representing the Democrats, the Blue Democrats. And I didn't even think we had did we use the blue and red designations in '95? No. Bob Dole, representing the Republicans. And Ross Perot was the wild card, running under the Reform Party banner. This was his second time running. He had a pretty major impact the first time, but played the role of a spoiler here. He was really interesting during that campaign because he was always kind of a paranoid character, we thought. But along the way, he had the impression that his family was being threatened because of his outspoken ideals. And he dropped out of the campaign to protect his daughter. And I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, he came back into the campaign. So it really diminished his potency. Because at the time he dropped out, he really could have been a contender. Because in the United States system, you need a plurality to win. You do not need a majority. You need the most plurality. Mathematicians, Mackenzie, you know for that? So because plurality is needed, Bill Clinton was able to win with less than 50%. I think he had like 38% of the vote or something like that. And that's, thanks to Ross Perot. So good. Third party is not a bad idea. The Hippo Party does not necessarily represent that day. So back to the campaign. It really was an interesting phenomenon. The enthusiasm was developed around this. So Keith Hampton, a local artist, asked if he could paint me as president, and did such. And I just continued to share ideas about the campaign and information and the song as I could during the run-up to the actual polling. And after Bill Clinton was reelected with only a plurality, and I talked to some of my friends and colleagues, I counted that 12 people claimed to actually have voted for me. Which I have to admit I found a little disturbing. Just to use your vote for kicks. I don't know. But that's what happened. So then it was over. In 1999 or so, or possibly 2000, people started to ask me if I was going to run for president again. And I hadn't given it that much thought, but it was fun enough. And obviously people were interested in it more than most of my other projects. So I decided, yeah, sure, I would. And I launched a website to represent the campaign. And it was as much a place to deliver graphics and just some things I was working with than, as much as, political campaign. More than a political campaign. More than anything, it was a links site that provided lots of information to various government and NGO organizations, places that represented some of the ideas that were important to me as well. But, starting out, it was mostly a way for people to get information about some of the things that are so hard to nail down in understanding in the United States. A lot of people don't even know what a lot of these places might do. But I did find, as I was checking the analytics on my website, that people were actually clicking these links, so it became a pretty potent resource for some people, which is a little satisfying. Even more links. But as I say, it was largely a place to do graphics and have some fun. So here's an image that I suborned from the archives of the Smithsonian Institution. Smithsonian Institute? So we see some taxidermists working on this hippo. And as you can see, or maybe you can't see, but the pundit says, there's my pointer here. The pundit says, "This is just what the American people have been waiting for," as he hears the words of the hippo. The Democrat is skeptical, but says, "Which of these qualities shall I appropriate?" In the GOP, short here on the side, "There's nothing to cut here." And as the media tries to dig into the hippo's ass, he says, "Damn, he's got a thick skin. I'll get him somewhere." So, I'm having a little fun, right? But as time went on, in various campaigns, I'm going to move along here, I just started to reuse a lot of the imagery that I'd appropriated. And let me try to do that properly. Here's something from Brenda's Star, where the spy is saying, "Say it again," and the brainwashed says, "He's the man to run this great nation of ours." And she says, "This will be the best ever." So we just cannot wait until the next campaign cycle. Let me reuse the graphic. That brings us up to about now, where actually this brings us, I'm a little ahead there too, but let's bring us up to October of last year. I'm going to get out of this application, start something else. Of course, we have fully embraced the idea that this is not a seamless technological event. So in October or so of 2010, I decided I was going to do this kind of psychedelic lounge. While I was thinking about it, someone asked me if I was running for president again. So I decided that this lounge can help represent my campaign. And I created this Woodard for President 2012 Exploratory Committee and opened the lounge to the enjoyment of several people with the help of Kiki Blood. Sorry. I have core values. The funny thing about the lounge is, I did two of them. Well, one was a great, fun time. But in both occasions, after having promoted this as the Woodard for President Exploratory Committee, people came up to ask me about my political views and were kind of adamant that I should have a stand on, especially the taxes thing at the time. This one guy came in, I was actually pouring gin and tonics at the bar, and he said, "Are you guys running for president?" And I said, "Yes, I'm Stan Woodard," and we shook hands. He said, "Well, what do you think about it?" I don't remember what he asked me, but he was so mad that I knew that he was con, that thing, and I just laughed at his face. It wasn't good. But he asked me again, whatever his question was, and then I just kind of walked away. So that, again, is what's happening in the campaign. So, and then in this case, I want to show you something else here.
Stan, that would be a good campaign.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying.
You stand away.
Now, at this second event, I was in this position with a guitar, hard to reach, and a guy came up to me again and had specific questions about what might happen if I were elected. And I couldn't really answer him. I'm just going to let this play for a few minutes.
Can you make it bigger on the screen?
So in reality, these people that had these questions really did help me out because it made me think about what the campaign might be. That first campaign was really represented by the song and the graphics that I handed out, printed things. And that was a lot of fun. By the time I was doing 2004 and 2008, it really wasn't that much fun. We were having very difficult times and just the whole thing had to be taken a lot more seriously. But back in, I'm not even sure what year it was, I think early on, in '99, I had thought about a noise opera that would be titled Good News from Modern America and subtitled Stand with the President of the Opera. So with the guy standing there asking me, taking me seriously as someone who represented ideas while I was making this racket and this, kind of hellish in a way environment, he could take me seriously enough to ask me, sincere questions. It really made me think. I decided I would go back to some of the ideas that I had before about an opera. So, with that said, this opera is as much an opera as the campaign is a campaign. It's something that hopefully will entertain and, I don't know, possibly enlighten people on one thing or another. But listening lately to Wagner's Ring Cycle, which is about as opera can get, realize that what I have in mind is, if and when it happens actually, as I'm being pinned down about what the opera is, it's considered a musical stage production, a multimedia stage production, or intermedia stage production, depending on who I'm talking to. And what's multimedia? So, Pat Hutcherson and I are going to take the last few minutes here to kind of lay out how this opera, Good News for Modern America, might begin. Using song and multimedia, and in subsequent briefings such as this one, I'll be expanding on the narrative, and the idea is that by summer 2012 or so, I'll be in a position to mount a stage production that would be titled Good News for Modern America.